A quiet afternoon in Haarlem, Netherlands, 1943. The streets are calm, but tension lingers in the air. A teenage girl with braided pigtails rides her bicycle through the city. She stops at a park bench. A woman sits there alone. She seems harmless. The girl walks up and asks softly, "What's your name?" The woman answers. Freddie Overstegen, just 16 years old, pulls out a pistol. Her target is a Dutch collaborator who has a list of hundreds of Jews, families whose names could mean death if handed to the Nazis. Freddie takes aim and acts decisively. She rides away on her bicycle, heart racing, but knowing she just saved hundreds of lives. By the end of the war, Freddie and her sister Truus will risk everything to stop dozens of Nazi collaborators. But how did two teenage girls become fearless fighters in the resistance? To understand that, we must go back to 1925, in a small village outside Haarlem where Freddie and Truus grew up. Freddie's childhood was far from normal. Her parents divorced. Her mother, Trintje, was a communist who believed in standing up against injustice. Their family lived modestly on a houseboat, often taking in Jewish refugees and others fleeing persecution. The girls learned early that helping others sometimes meant risking everything for the greater good. When Nazi Germany invaded the Netherlands in 1940, Freddie was only 14. The streets were filled with German soldiers, flags of occupation hung from every building, and fear was everywhere. But the Overstegen sisters didn't hide. They joined their mother distributing anti-Nazi pamphlets and illegal newspapers, racing through the streets at night, hearts pounding, knowing capture could mean death. By 1941, the Dutch resistance had noticed the girls' courage. A man named Frans van der Waal came to their home. He asked if they could join the underground fight. Their mother agreed and the sisters said yes. But first, they had to prove themselves. Van der Waal staged a test. Dressed as a Gestapo officer, he stormed their apartment demanding information about a Jewish man in hiding. Freddie and Truus didn't break. They didn't give up a single name. They had passed the first test. Soon, they were taken to an underground potato shed, a secret place where they learned to fire weapons, aim, and stay calm under pressure. Their first missions weren't assassinations, they were sabotage. They would distract Nazi guards with conversation and laughter, while other resistance members set fires to warehouses. Their youth and innocence became their greatest weapon. The sisters were ready, and when the first order to stop a collaborator came, Freddie's training was put to the ultimate test. The first target was a Dutch collaborator, a woman who had compiled a list of every Jew in the region, names and addresses ready to hand over to the Nazis. That list meant death for hundreds of innocent people. The resistance assigned the job to Freddie. She rode her bicycle through Haarlem, heart pounding, her small frame hiding a weapon that could change countless lives. The woman was sitting on a park bench, unaware of the danger. Freddie approached, casual, innocent, just a teenage girl with braided pigtails. "What's your name?" she asked. The woman answered. Freddie confirmed the target. With steady hands, she fired. Then she hopped back on her bicycle and disappeared into the streets. Later, she would describe the strange instinct that followed, the urge to help, even after taking a life. That instinct stayed with her, guiding her humanity through a world gone mad. From that day, the sisters' missions grew bolder. Sometimes they worked together, sometimes alone. They learned the art of distraction, talking to German officers, laughing, leaning close, and then leading them into the forest where another sister waited. One shot, and the threat was gone. Speed became a weapon too. Truus would pedal while Freddie fired from the back of a bicycle. They memorized every street, every alley, every escape route. To the world, they were just two girls on bicycles, harmless, innocent. To the Nazis, they were a growing threat. In 1943, another young woman joined them, Hannie Schaft, a law student with striking red hair who refused to pledge loyalty to Germany. She became the intellectual of their team, planning operations and assessing risks, complementing Freddy's courage and Truus's decisiveness. Together, the three formed a formidable unit. They sabotaged railway lines to halt deportation trains, smuggled Jewish children across borders, forged identity papers, and gathered intelligence. They fought not just against soldiers, but against collaborators, those who betrayed their own neighbors for power or profit. The sisters developed a principle they would never break. No child, no innocent, would ever be harmed. Even in the face of unimaginable cruelty, their humanity remained intact. They had become shadows of justice in an occupied world, feared by those who thought themselves untouchable. By the end of 1943, the Oversteegen sisters and Hannie were no longer just young girls, they were symbols of resistance. Every mission brought danger, but also purpose. And for every life they protected, they became more determined to continue the fight. By 1944, the Oversteegen sisters and Hannie Schaft had become more than just members of the Dutch resistance. They had become its most daring agents. Every street, every bar, every meeting place could hide danger. Yet they moved with confidence, knowing their youth was their greatest disguise. The sisters refined their methods. Bars and taverns became hunting grounds. One sister would strike up a casual conversation with a German officer, laugh at his jokes, lean in, touch his arm, and then invite him for a stroll in the nearby woods. The officer, unsuspecting, would follow. Out of sight of roads and witnesses, the other sister would be waiting. One precise shot, and the threat was gone. Sometimes speed and surprise were their weapons. Truus would pedal fiercely while Freddy fired from the back of a bicycle, taking down collaborators in the streets without alerting anyone else. At home, they mapped every route, memorized escape paths, and learned to anticipate patrols. Their small size and seeming innocence allowed them to move where no adult could. Hannie added planning and strategy to the team. She coordinated missions, analyzed risks, and ensured that no innocent life was ever harmed. Together, they carried out sabotage operations that would halt deportation trains, destroy supply lines, and save countless lives. Yet the emotional weight of their actions never left them. Every life taken, every collaborator eliminated, was carried in their hearts. They wept in secret, even as they fought, remembering the lesson their mother had taught them: always stay human. Despite the dangers, they never faltered. The Nazis became increasingly aware of the mysterious young women disrupting their operations. Bulletins warned of red-haired girls, pigtails, girls on bicycles. But by then, Freddy, Truus, and Hannie were already legends in the underground. Every mission strengthened their resolve. Every life saved reminded them why they had taken up arms. And through it all, they remained ordinary girls on the surface, but extraordinary heroes beneath, carrying the fate of countless innocents on their shoulders. The resistance had given them weapons, maps, and orders, but it was their courage, ingenuity, and humanity that made them unstoppable. By 1944, the German forces and their collaborators had begun to realize that the streets of Haarlem were no longer safe for them. Reports circulated of young girls, innocent-looking, often on bicycles, striking fear into the hearts of those who betrayed their neighbors. Freddy, Truus, and Hannie had become targets themselves. Every mission now carried higher stakes. Intelligence had to be precise, routes carefully planned, and timing perfect. One wrong move could mean capture or death. Yet the girls continued, driven by the lives they could save. They sabotaged railway lines that carried Jews to concentration camps, distributed forged papers to refugees, and passed vital information to Allied forces. Each act was a lifeline for those in danger, a small victory against the overwhelming machinery of war. The psychological toll was heavy. Each mission meant confronting the humanity of those they were forced to fight, and the cruelty of those who served the Nazis. Freddie and Truus learned to control their fear, to act decisively, and to keep their compassion intact, even in the most harrowing situations. Hanny's intellect guided them, calculating risks and planning escapes, ensuring that no unnecessary lives were lost, including their own. The team's operations became more audacious. They would follow collaborators home, learn their routines, and strike when no one expected it. Sometimes they lured officers into the forest. Other times, speed and surprise from a bicycle was enough to remove a threat. Their methods evolved with experience, blending stealth, intelligence, and precision. But danger was never far away. The Nazis issued bulletins describing the girls and warning officers to be vigilant. Hanny's red hair made her particularly recognizable, so she dyed it black and wore glasses to avoid capture. Despite these precautions, the sense of being hunted was constant. And yet, even under relentless pressure, the girls never abandoned their principles. They would not harm children nor innocent civilians. Each life they spared was a reminder of the humanity they were fighting to preserve. Their courage inspired others in the resistance. Young and old, men and women alike, saw in Freddie, Truus, and Hanny a model of fearlessness, proof that even in a world ruled by fear, bravery could endure. By late 1944, the war was approaching its final stages. The girls had saved countless lives, disrupted German operations, and become symbols of resistance. But the final months would bring their most dangerous challenges yet, and the stakes would become higher than ever before. As 1944 moved forward, the Oversteegen sisters and Hanny faced their most dangerous missions yet. The streets were tense, checkpoints increased, and German patrols were everywhere. Every step outside their safe houses could lead to capture, or worse. Their assignments became more audacious. They followed collaborators home, studied their routines, and struck when least expected. In some cases, one sister would create a distraction, laughing, chatting, seeming harmless, while the other completed the mission. In others, speed and surprise from a bicycle allowed them to act and vanish before anyone could react. One mission in particular tested their courage. A Dutch SS officer had been terrorizing the neighborhood, and intelligence revealed his activities endangered countless families. Freddie and Truus planned meticulously, tracking his movements for days. When the moment came, Truus pedaled while Freddie fired, striking with precision. No innocent bystanders were harmed, but the message was clear. No collaborator was safe. Meanwhile, Hanny took on a different role, planning, coordinating, and ensuring missions minimized risk to civilians. Her analytical mind complemented the sisters' bravery, allowing the trio to work as a seamless unit. Together, they disrupted German operations, sabotaged supply lines, and saved hundreds of lives. Despite their successes, the girls were constantly aware that the Nazis were hunting them. Hanny, especially, became a target. Her bright red hair had already made her recognizable. She changed her appearance, but vigilance was required at every turn. The psychological strain was immense, but their determination never wavered. Through these missions, the sisters' reputation grew. To the resistance, They were heroes, young women risking everything to protect the innocent. To the Nazis, they were shadows, ghosts moving through the city, impossible to catch. Yet, even in the darkest moments, Freddie, Truus, and Hanny remembered their mother's lesson. Always remain human. No child, no innocent, would ever be harmed. Every life they saved reinforced why they continued the fight, even as danger pressed closer with every passing day. By now, they had become living symbols of courage, inspiring others to resist, showing that even the youngest and seemingly weakest could strike fear into oppressors. The final months of the war would soon test their courage like never before, and the girls would face decisions that no one should ever have to make. By early 1945, the war was reaching its final stages, but danger for Freddie, Truus, and Hanny had never been higher. The Nazis were desperate to root out resistance members, and the girls had become high-priority targets. Bulletins warned of their movements, and collaborators were on constant lookout for the teenage assassins who seemed everywhere and nowhere at once. Every mission now required more caution. Streets were lined with checkpoints, houses were searched, and even small mistakes could be fatal. Yet the sisters continued, driven by the lives they had saved and the families depending on them. They sabotaged trains heading to concentration camps, helped smuggle children across borders in the dead of night, and destroyed intelligence documents that could have doomed hundreds. One afternoon, Truus witnessed a horror that would haunt her forever. A Dutch SS soldier, one of their own countrymen, seized an infant from a terrified family. The baby was killed in an instant. Truus didn't hesitate. Her pistol fired, stopping the soldier on the spot. This wasn't a mission ordered by anyone. It was instinct, justice in the face of unthinkable evil. She later said, "Some things don't need orders." Meanwhile, Hanny's role became increasingly dangerous. Her red hair made her easy to spot, even with disguises. She continued her missions, sabotaging, coordinating, and striking fear into collaborators. But in March 1945, she was finally caught. Stopped at a Nazi checkpoint while carrying a pistol and illegal newspapers, she was arrested and taken to prison in Amsterdam. For weeks, she endured interrogation and solitary confinement. The Nazis needed her to betray the resistance, but she refused to name anyone, not Freddie, not Truus, no one. The Oversteegen sisters were relentless outside the prison walls, continuing their missions, aware that every day brought Hanny closer to danger. And yet, they refused to give up their principles, refusing missions that involved harming children or innocents, no matter the orders. By this time, the girls were living legends within the resistance. Every operation they carried out had saved lives, disrupted German plans, and inspired others to fight back. But as the Allies advanced, the stakes grew ever higher. Every street, every encounter could be their last. The final days of the occupation would bring triumph and tragedy, testing the courage, morality, and resilience of these teenage heroes in ways they could never have imagined. April 1945. The Netherlands was on the brink of liberation. German forces were retreating, yet danger still lurked in every street. Freddie and Truus continued their missions, sabotaging remaining collaborators, helping refugees escape, and carrying the fight forward until the very end. Meanwhile, Hanny Schaft's capture had become a symbol of the resistance's sacrifices. Despite torture and solitary confinement, she never revealed the names of her friends or fellow fighters. Her courage inspired everyone who heard her story. Tragically, on April 17, 1945, Hanny was executed by collaborators, a young woman who had risked everything for freedom, just 24 years old. Her death came only weeks before the Netherlands would finally be liberated. On May 5, 1945, the country was free. Streets once filled with fear now rang with celebration. Freddie and Truus survived, but the weight of their experiences never left them. They had saved hundreds, fought tirelessly, and remained human in the face of unimaginable evil. Yet for decades, the sisters were overlooked. Their mother's communist beliefs and their own youth meant that their heroism went largely unrecognized. Truus turned to art, creating memorials to honor the resistance. Freddie built a family, tried to live a normal life, but the past lingered. Nightmares, memories, and the heavy burden of lives taken and lives saved. Finally, in 2014, nearly 70 years later, the Dutch government acknowledged their bravery. Prime Minister Mark Rutte awarded them the Mobilization War Cross for their service during World War II. Streets in Haarlem were named after them, and for the first time the nation said thank you. Throughout her life, Freddie visited Hanny's grave, leaving red roses for the friend who didn't survive. When asked for advice to future generations, Truus said simply, "When you have to make a decision, it must be the right one, and you must always remain human." Freddie and Truus had killed, sabotaged, and fought against overwhelming forces, yet they never lost their humanity. They refused to harm children, mourned after each death, and carried the weight of their actions for the rest of their lives. The Nazis had killed millions, but the girls proved that courage, morality, and compassion could endure even in the darkest times. Their story reminds us that heroes don't always wear medals, and courage doesn't always come with recognition. Sometimes it comes in the form of two teenage girls on bicycles facing impossible odds and choosing to fight for what is right.